Hey party people, I am Captain Zeus and welcome back to BP Fun. In today's video, I'll be doing a series review, or at least a season review, for Star Wars' Tales of the Empire. Now, spoiler warning for those of you that have not seen the show, it did just drop today, and you know what? May the Force be with you guys. Happy Star Wars Day. Now, to start things off, I will say visually this show was pretty dang freaking good. Just like Tales of the Jedi, this followed suit with the same style of animation, obviously, Dave Filoni's signature CGI, and honestly, the background and some of just the artwork done for this was just beautifully done. I'll start off with the pros as we dive into some of the things I liked. Soundtrack was also fantastic. Kevin Conner did an amazing job again as usual. Now we'll split this up into like two sections. One would be about Morgan's story, the other one will be about Barriss' story. Now in terms of Morgan's story, I'll be honest, I did not care for her character in The Mandalorian or in Ahsoka. I honestly never really liked her. The way she was in Mando season 2 was very filler character-y. She gave no significance or importance other than she had a staff of pure Beskar and she knew where Thrawn was. Other than that, nothing about her character really stroked me as interesting. And it was the same thing in this show. The only reason she was a little bit more interesting in the show was because of episode 1, which was, I mean, we all know she's a Night Sister, right? But the fact that she was there when Palpatine gave Grievous the order to slaughter the Night Sisters, that's a huge significance that we've seen, I think, in comics and novels, but never done in animation or live action in a series or a movie. So it was cool to see that, and having Grievous back is just awesome as well. So that was a really fun segment, and her talking to Thrawn about building her plan was also pretty cool as well. Now, the one thing I will say is episode 3 was basically pointless. You could watch episode 1 and 2 and not watch 3, and you're not missing literally anything. The Morgan side of things doesn't explain to us how she took over the village. She's just like, yeah, I took over the village. It doesn't tell us how she got a Beskar staff, which is kind of like a pretty important thing because Beskar's very hard to come by. And I mean, unless I'm not understanding correctly, it doesn't tell us what her actual revenge plan is. I mean, was it just to bring back Thrawn? Like, who is her enemy? Palpatine's the one that destroyed the Night Sisters, and yet she's teaming up with the Empire? Like, a lot of that stuff just did not make sense to me, and I had way more questions than answers watching Morgan's section of the season, or of, you know, Tales of the Empire. Again, it was cool to see a younger Thrawn and kind of, but I mean, honestly, Morgan's story was pointless to me. I think other than episode 1, which even after the slaughter of the Night Sisters, it really wasn't that interesting. Morgan was just a cliche character driven by revenge who's twisting the minds of the innocents, and they all die because of blindly following her. It wasn't that good, and I'm like ashamed to have watched this or to have been hyped about this. Obviously, the only reason I was hyped about her story was, again, the Night Sisters getting slaughtered by, you know, Grievous. I was interested to see where that story was going to go and lead to, but it didn't really go or lead to anywhere. We were just left off with what questions. Now, moving on to Barriss Offee's, however you want to pronounce her last name, her side of the story, I thought her side was way better. Obviously, we see her get arrested in the Clone Wars because of, you know, framing Ahsoka, which is kind of like, bro, that's your best friend. Why are you gonna frame your best friend? That's super effed, but whatever. And this picks up during Order 66, or at least a little bit after, you know. And one thing I noticed was that she wasn't necessarily anti-Jedi. It was just she was anti-Clone Wars Jedi, if you will, basically being the Republic's lapdog, which, yeah, that's kind of like her whole thing. But I thought she was gonna go more full Sith. You know, that direction would have been cool. However, they went with the more, I guess, the more canon gray Jedi, if you will, where they're not Jedi or Sith, although they're more light side. They know how to use the dark side, so they're just kind of there who guide people to Jedi, which is weird that they just don't become Jedi themselves, but whatever. First episode was really cool. You get to see the Inquisitor, at least first gen Inquisitor training, and you learn that Barriss is the second sister, which is pretty cool. And, you know, you obviously see characters that we've seen in live action that didn't have any backstory either, like the Inquisitor from Tales of the Jedi, who Ahsoka kills, which I honestly thought that was going to be Barriss. I think that would have been super cool if that was Barriss. Honestly, I know it wasn't. That's, you know, whatever brother it was, but I think that would have been the coolest thing ever if that was Barriss, full circle kind of thing. And then you see the Inquisitor that was dead but alive in Ahsoka. I guess he was a ghost, whatever. And then you see the Inquisitor sister who was in Obi-Wan. So that was cool. You get to see the connection between Lin and Barriss, which didn't strike me as master student or close relationship type at all. It definitely striked me as typical Inquisitor relationships, which don't exist. And then we get into episode 2, where Barriss and Lynn are hunting down a Jedi. Honestly, 100% cool with how the episode went. Barriss still sort of Jedi-ish, but also cool with doing what they're doing. Just not happy about the fact that they're just murdering innocents after, you know, they got what they were looking for. So I like the struggle between the typical Jedi way and the whole, okay, this is the Inquisitor, the Sith style is what we're going with. But then she betrayed Lynn. Some could see that as predictable. I kind of did. I was kind of hoping it didn't go that route. Again, I was hoping that this was going to be an actual, like, full Sith storyline, kind of with a trend that Morgan was going with, how it was full bad guy storyline. But she turned from the inquisitorial ways, and that's fine. And then in episode 3, we pick up with her as like this wise mother, right? Is what they called her or whatever. And I was hoping that the black Jedi, that female Jedi that she saved, was going to be with her. And I was hoping that kid that she saved was also going to be with her, but neither of them were there. I have no idea where they went. I have questions now. Where did they go? What happened to them? Like, did you save the female? Did you not? What happened? And you're left with like a new cast of sidekicks she's got. Anyways, Lynn comes in to track down the baby, and long story short, Barriss, from what it sounds like, she's sending the kid, the Force-sensitive kid, to Ahsoka, I think. She says a friend, and she implies it's a female, so I'm assuming it's Ahsoka. And this is obviously between 3 and 4, so I would assume it's Ahsoka, but at the same time, Ahsoka was either not even a part of the rebellion yet, like she was full closed off like we saw in Tales of the Jedi, or she was a part of the rebellion, but she wasn't doing any Jedi recruiting. She was just covert Black Ops doing stuff. So I'm wondering as to who she sent that kid with. And the fact that Barriss was trying to turn Lynn from her Sith ways, totally cool, totally fine with that. The only thing is I didn't like the fact that she was accidentally stabbed. It didn't make any sense for Barriss with her skill sets to just get stabbed accidentally by Lynn in that cave. It kind of combated the whole cool scene we see of her just dodging Lynn's lightsaber because it was predictable. And Lynn was in a more rage state then than she was earlier, so that she could have and should have easily dodged that. Made no sense why she got stabbed or let herself get stabbed. And she didn't die. We saw that she was still breathing. She was putting her hand over Lynn's, etc. Lynn was like, I'm gonna save you. She gets her out. So Barriss is still alive after episode 6, which then brings me more questions. What happens to Barriss? What is next? Where has she been? What has she been doing? What's gonna happen with Lynn here? Freaking crazy. I know that I kind of went into more of a breakdown there, but I would just say that Barriss' story was more interesting. However, it wasn't as good as I thought it was gonna be. It was kind of like flat, especially compared to Tales of the Jedi. Tales of the Jedi was so freaking good, right? Both sides of it. Obviously, the Ahsoka story wasn't as interesting as the Dooku story. You can't really top the Dooku story. That's like peak Star Wars. So much good writing in that. And the Ahsoka story was good too, don't get me wrong. But this was kind of like the same model where the Morgan story is the lesser story than the Barriss story. And the Morgan story was just honestly just not that good at all. You honestly could take that out and it adds literally nothing to the lore that we haven't already seen. It doesn't really do anything. And then the Barriss story is interesting. It does add more to what happened to her, how the Inquisitors, like that first gen of Inquisitors start off as, but then it's another cliffhanger. So I would assume and hope that we're gonna get more for Barriss' story, either in some kind of sequel series or in Tales of the Empire 2 or something, or Tales of the Jedi, maybe, I don't care. But we need answers to that because this whole season gave me more questions than answers. Whereas Tales of the Jedi gave me more answers than questions, which is kind of like what's supposed to do with stories that are supposed to be closure. Like that's kind of the vibe I'm getting, is these stories are supposed to be closures. Like these are ends of questions that you had in between these segments of like movies or shows or whatever. And it didn't seem like this was getting that whatsoever. So in comparison to Tales of the Jedi, which I would have gave like a 9.5 out of 10, maybe even a 9.8 out of 10. Shoot, I could give it a 10 out of 10 if I'm being honest. Nah, I'd probably give it a 9.5 because the Ahsoka story kind of fell flat a little bit. This one I would give probably like a 7.5 out of 10. I could see an argument for an 8, but I would give it a 7.5 out of 10 personally. And I hope the next seasons are way better. I mean, again, animation was good, soundtrack's good, the pacing's fine. It's just the stories weren't as good as they should have or could have been. But what do you guys think? I mean, have you guys seen the show? Please let me know in the comments below your thoughts on the Tales of the Empire. I'm still hopeful for like a second season. I still think they will give us a second season, unless this is technically the second season of Tales of the Jedi. Or maybe they make this into like the Tales of series, and then that would be cool. Tales of the Jedi, Tales of the Empire, Tales of the Republic, you know, Tales of the Sith. You know, that's a cool trend that they could do. Please let me know in the comments below your thoughts. I'm Captain Zeus, and I will catch you guys in the next video. See ya.